Ras Baraka.
It's a pleasure to be here. I just want to say thank you. This is the second time the brother invited me back. I gotta, whenever you ask me whether I can do it or not, I have to get out here to Jersey City, to the library. Excuse me for being late. My daughter's in 8th grade and she's going to some social, and I have to get out there and wait for her to take all day to get dressed. An hour to put on makeup, and, so I was frustrated and fussing for the rush, and I got to get back there before she gets out of there, or she's gonna have a fit. But I appreciate being invited here. It's humbling, and I'm honored to come out to Jersey City and give my kind of humble opinion around Malcolm X's birthday, which I think is incredibly important for us to celebrate. Get the same kind of attention as other folks during this time, but he needs to. Right? And Malcolm X is a very powerful and impactful figure in the 20th century in America, right? Not just in Black America, but in America, period. He is an important figure in the struggle for democracy and self-determination for African people and all oppressed and working people in this country and around the world. He always talked about bringing the plight of African Americans to the United Nations. And that's important because he thought that, if he brought the issues that we were dealing with to an international body to force the world to look at the discrimination that was happening here in this country, that somehow we would get the relief that we deserve. And fortunately and unfortunately, we are still in that struggle, trying to get people to notice the plight of our folks in this country, which is shown clearly by the fact that our kids still have to say Black Lives Matter. And the end of the century, they're still talking about Black Lives Matter. And in 1857, Dred Scott and his wife went to court. And if you didn't know that, you should go check that out. The Dred Scott decision, and it basically said that Black people had no rights that white folks were bound to respect. That in fact we were property, and that we could not sue because your property can't sue. We are still struggling around that idea that we're actually human beings. The way we are looked at, characterized, contextualized, is still a struggle. Whether our humanity, I should say, is still in question. And because our humanity is in question, we still have to wear shirts and advocate Black Lives Matter. In fact, it is almost difficult for us to say Black Lives Matter, right? Because if you say that, you are almost castigated because folks don't think you should say Black Lives Matter. They think that you are discriminatory in yourself. But logic and mathematics would defeat that, because in order for all lives to matter, then Black lives have to matter, right? So that fits in the logical conclusion. And so if Black lives don't matter, then obviously all lives don't matter, right? Since Black lives are a part of all lives, then Black lives must matter in order for all lives to matter. And if we can't understand that, then we have to be more clear about it. Like, everybody is not getting choked to death for cigarettes, right? Everybody's not getting shot in the back running away from traffic stops. Like, I know officers who go through very difficult situations who shoot no one, right? So I don't understand how in a traffic stop you murder somebody unarmed with their seatbelt on, right? So that has to be looked at, and so it's necessary for us to say that, and then it becomes more necessary because how that is belittled and dehumanized makes it necessary for us to say Black Lives Matter. And so we can't, and people like me in positions that I'm in, we get the pressure from folks to say, you can't say Black Lives Matter, because if you say that, then you're being discriminatory, right? So we have to be not just strong, but intelligent in the memory and in the context of Malcolm X. We have to be self-determining. right? That means we have to protect ourselves. And protecting yourself, when people say self-defense, people doesn't necessarily mean that we want to have a physical fight, right? Self-defense comes in many forms, right? When we defend our name, we defend our culture, we defend the way we are depicted, we defend the narratives, the stories, and the way we're being told. We defend our history in schools, right? We defend our universities that exist. We defend our families from being violated. We defend ourselves against poverty and disease and unemployment, right? We defend, so self-defense is necessary. And because Malcolm advocated self-defense, he is always put aside. He advocated violence. No. He advocated self-defense, right? And it's important for us to understand what self-defense means, right? It's important for us to understand what self-defense means. And I'm going to go read Frederick Douglass for a second here, if I can get it. You know, we know Frederick Douglass, you know, when there's no struggle, there's no progress. I think you need to actually hear, well, if I hope I didn't lose it, what he actually said. Here it says, those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one or it may be a physical one, and it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without demand. It never did and it never will. Here's the real part. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those who they oppress. That is Malcolm X. That is what he was saying all of his life, that the limits of tyrants, that his favorite word is, you know, we got to get their foot off our neck, right? We got to get their foot off our neck, or take the knife out of our back. You can't pull a knife out 6 inches and say that that's progress. Pull the knife out my back. That's what Malcolm said in his speeches, and he was advocating for self-defense. And they try to make us choose always. They make your children, our children, choose between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They try to make us make a choice. They've always done that, though. You have to choose Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. And when I became a little older, just a little smarter than I was as a child, you know, I had some opportunity as a kid growing up in a household that had access to a lot of information. But when I became mature enough to understand that they killed both of them, that it didn't matter which one you prescribe to. But ultimately, what we should understand as mature individuals and learn intellectuals that are immersed in our own history and culture, that actually Malcolm X and Martin Luther King are actually saying the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
When it boils down to it and it gets to that point, we begin to understand that self-determination and democracy is both what we need. What does that mean? It means that because we are here in this country, like when people say, go back where you came from, you should remind them that we wouldn't be here if you didn't bring us here, right? But at the end of the day, when you know, because we are here by history's sake, we are here in this place, we deserve to be treated as human beings in this day, like Malcolm said, in this society, by any means necessary. We deserve the same rights, responsibilities, constitutional privileges, opportunities that America has said that they offer through their Declaration of Independence, through their Constitution, through the Bill of Rights, through all these things. We deserve those things merely because we are here in this country. And we deserve them. And we don't want to abdicate our responsibility as citizens, so we deserve the right to get what everybody else is getting. And that's what Martin Luther King was on the front lines for. So he wasn't dying. People didn't kill Medgar Evers because he was subversive. Medgar Evers was murdered on his lawn because he was trying to get people to vote in the American elections.
Yeah.
They didn't murder. They didn't shoot James Meredith in his March Against Fear at the University of Mississippi because he was some kind of terrorist. They shot him because he wanted to be admitted to the University of Mississippi. Right? Those things are things that American citizens are supposed to have, and so we ought to fight for democracy. Right? Yes. Which means that if you live in this city, in this state, the things that everybody else has access to, so should you.
Oh, yeah.
And so you should be advocating to have access. That's what democracy is about, right? Access. It's not about hollering and screaming. It's about agitating or organizing until you seize power.
Yes.
Until you seize power, because that's what it's about, the seizure of power. Right? See, your culture will always be negated if you do not have any power. You will not be respected if you don't have any power. If you can't make things happen, then, for yourself, for your family, for your community, if you have no authority over your own family.
That's right.
If you have no authority over your own schools. If you have no authority over your own police force, no authority over the things that are going on in your community, or authority over the jobs that come into your place, authority, right, over the contracts that happen in your city, authority over the housing that goes up in your neighborhood, authority on what the housing looks like in your community. So if you don't have no authority, you don't get any respect.
That's right.
And then you want to know why people disrespect us, because we're not exercising our authority.
That's right.
You can't go in other people's communities and dictate what's going on with their children in those schools.
That's right.
You can't. It's not going to happen. Right? It's not going to happen. So, at the end of the day, we have to exercise our authority. We have to seize power so you can exercise your authority to do so. That is the fight for democracy. That is what King was saying, and that ultimately is what Malcolm was saying too. That is the fight for democracy, that we can't be left out. You brought us here, now deal with it. Right? That's what democracy means. And whatever, however high we can go based on the limits that you prescribed, we're going to go high. We're going to go we want all of it, and then some, right? And by virtue of the fact that we worked here for free for hundreds of years, and we were denied access for another more hundreds of years, right? It wasn't until 1964. They said we first 1617, some say 1555. You count from 1619 or Jamestown all the way to 1863, 1864, 1865, the Reconstruction Amendments. Go past that to 1963, 1964, 1965. All those times, that is when they even began to identify you as a citizen. 1964, you got the Civil Rights Bill passed, public accommodations, all the way from 1619.
Yeah.
So all that time that our whole community, our families were diverted, were hurt, were stalled, you owe us for that. You owe us. So when people ask for reparations and ask for the democratic, our democratic rights, that's a logical and right argument.
Oh yeah.
And when people say, this person is on welfare, so what? You owe me. That's how I feel, right? Farm subsidies, welfare, whatever you got.
Yeah.
Whatever you got. You don't even have enough money to pay us all of the things that we lost in the process of getting us to this present day.
Oh yeah.
The families that were lost, the people that were hung, the jobs we couldn't get, the folks that were incarcerated, all of this stuff, the people that are at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean who didn't make it over here. All of those generations of folks that was lost, you owe us for that. And that's what and so our struggle for democracy is a lot larger than the bickering that we go through in these communities, in these cities, trying to fight each other over small levels of power and pieces of position that we don't have anyway.
That's right.
Right? So we find ourselves attacking each other and beating each other over the small pieces of things when the larger picture is being lost because we don't understand what the real true struggle for democracy is about.
Oh yeah.
We're fighting each other to be in rooms next to people who don't want us in the room anyway.
That's right.
To have access to talk to people who don't even want to have a conversation with you. And the only reason they're talking to you is because you organized yourself just enough to be let in the room in the first place.
All right.
And if you couldn't get in the room, they would walk past you.
That's right.
Trust me, that's not lost on me. I know that I get the opportunity, the privilege, if you will, to talk to a few people who would never say anything to me if I wasn't the mayor of the city of Newark.
Oh yeah, right.
And I got that kind of so-called privilege because of the democratic struggle that people in the city began to fight for. We lost that. So our kids don't even understand that because we have not taught them the history of that. So they think that black politicians or African American politicians are useless because many of us have been useless. But we believe that, and so we don't understand. We don't understand the necessity to have it and why we need to struggle. And so it's important for us, to say, first of all, the Reconstruction Amendments that all Americans benefit from.
Yeah.
The 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, citizenship, everybody benefits from. Everybody. From immigrants to the disabled benefit from the 14th Amendment. The 15th Amendment, those amendments were passed during Reconstruction. And Reconstruction amendments were a radical time in the Southern history when black people assumed authority of the political infrastructure in the South during that time.
Oh yeah.
So it was important. They made some very, very radical things take place during a small period of time until they were betrayed in 1877 in Hayes-Tilden, the compromise that said we'll take the troops out of the South. We'll take the troops out of the South if you allow Rutherford B. Hayes to become the president of the United States. And when the troops were removed from the South, we had to endure hundreds of years of lynching.
Yeah.
You should go study that history. Hundreds of years of lynching, of not just Jim Crow, slave codes.
Yeah.
Sharecropping.
Yeah.
Crop lien system.
Yeah.
Vagrancy laws.
Yeah.
The same kind of rule of thumb that they used, that they imported or exported to South Africa in apartheid.
Yes.
Right? They exported that over there and said, oh, that worked for them, we're going to do it over here. So that is a very critical moment that took place. And we have to understand that history because we'll be in the process of repeating that.
Yes.
And we're in the middle of the same kind of thing that took place in 1877 has like before our eyes in a present sense. In a present sense. So all of that, we endured a long century of abuse.
Yeah.
Abuse. That's just being studied. They're arguing that over 4,000 African American men, women, and children were hung and lynched during that time period.
Yeah.
That's the whole, when we couldn't defend ourselves, as Malcolm said, we couldn't defend ourselves, right? We couldn't defend ourselves. Because there's one thing, because there were a lot of folks who, you know about Black Wall Street, all they talk about all this stuff, people were getting resources and developing businesses, and even in those difficult times. But because you had no political power, you couldn't defend it. See, I learned about, politics and democracy a long time just by growing up in Newark. Like, you could walk around the street with a nice radio you just bought.
Yeah.
Like, it's only your radio if you can keep it.
That's
Right? You can go to the store and get you some nice sneakers that your mama worked hard for and put them on your feet.
Yeah.
If you don't have no way to defend those sneakers, as soon as you put them on, they can belong to somebody else.
That's right.
And the real crazy thing about it was a lot of people that saw people walking around the neighborhood with their sneakers on and couldn't get them back.
Oh yeah.
That's what self-defense is, right? So, and then some people had self-defense in such a way that they didn't have to do anything physical, right? That their reputation itself and their family's reputation protected them in specific areas, so they didn't have to do anything because their reputation preceded them.
Yeah.
Right? But what kind of reputation do we have when people believe they can do whatever they want to us and we can't do anything in return? And that's what politics is about. Self-defense. That's what it's about, defending yourself. And that's a whole side of it, right? And then we went on to the 60s. You know, Ken Gibson was the first African-American mayor of one of these major cities on the eastern seaboard, right? But before that, you had Richard Hatcher and Gary, Indiana. You had Stokes in Cleveland. They had 1972 National Black Political Convention in Gary, where black folks came from all over the place, all over the country, and got together and put together something called the National Black Political Agenda. And you didn't know that, because our folks struggled, right? And when those folks were elected, you know, there were a lot of things that happened. The so-called present day black middle class is because of that movement. You know, because the private sector in America has never fully democratized itself. Never. And that means that if you go to any of these corporations, if you go to the top of their boards, it looks all white and all male.
Oh yeah.
True.
And if you go into these corporations, you look down, most of them, in the meat of it, is still all white and mostly male. Right? So the public sector has been the only sector that democratized itself because we fought for that, right? We fought so that the public sector could be democratized because we had access to the vote. And because we had access to the vote, it forced the public sector to become more democratic. And when they became more democratic, they began to hire more people that looked like you and people in your community. I had an argument with somebody years ago about why it's necessary to have a black police chief. Right? We just had a debate, a regular debate. He said, why in Newark, do they always say they want a black police chief, or they want a black fire chief, they want a black this and that, black? I said, that's because there's only a little bit of those jobs in the state, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's only a few of those jobs. Let's count the municipalities in the state. Right? Maybe it's 566, right? Let's count that, right? And let's count municipalities where we have some level of numbers, right? So I can't go to your municipality and get that job. So it becomes important for me to carve a space out, at least for people in my community, so they have access to the stuff that they went to school for, that they worked hard for, so they can get an opportunity to exert themselves. Right? And that's what democracy and defending your community is about. So when people come to your neighborhood and they bring a store in, it is right for you to say, hire my folks in my neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
That's what you're supposed to say. That's the right thing to say. That is self-defense. That's democracy, right? Now, because we don't understand that and we have lost that, right? What happens is, you know, we those numbers dwindle. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and we don't exert ourselves like that anymore. So you take New York City, because David Dinkins, you know, was there, and maybe, you know, there's, my father used to say it's 10 things, and if we don't agree on number 4 and number 6, we all walk away. We can agree on 1, 4, 7, 9. We agree on 8 of them. We don't disagree on 2 of them. We walk away from it, right? So we don't agree completely with David Dinkins. They wanted to throw him out of there. Oh, we got to get rid of him. He's not for us. And they got stuck with Giuliani and then this other guy, right? And they have been over there in New York for 20 years, fighting this stuff. 20 years, because we weren't politically sophisticated enough to understand that you can be against people's ideas and support them at the same time. You don't have to agree with everything they say, so it's called unity and struggle. That's what it's called, unity and struggle. We unite around the big picture, but I'm going to struggle with you around the things we don't agree on. That means when I get to see you, I can say, bro, I don't agree with that. You still doing that thing. That's crazy. You need to stop that. Right? You don't agree with everything your son and daughter do sometimes. They still your kids. You still got to admonish them, but that don't mean you disown them, right? Baby, you can't do that. I love you, but you can't do that. Right? And that is the political sophistication of democracy. That's what you understand. Now I can even get to the other part, right? So the other part is self-determination. And it's difficult for us, and that's all Malcolm. It's difficult for us to exert ourselves to be self-determining when we have a negative view of ourselves. We don't believe that we deserve it. Self-determination means, so democracy says, I have a right to have that because I'm here. Self-determination means when I get it, I can use it the way I want. That's self-determination. Meaning, I want to have access to your school because I pay taxes, and you better let me have access, and you should teach me what I think I should know. But self-determination means if I want to build my own school, I should be able to do that too.
Oh, yeah.
That's what self-determination means. That's what it means. That means that I want stores too. I want to open up a store to sell the goods in my store and my community. It means that I want to be able to, in the library, put books in the library that speak right and good about the people, about my people, especially the folks that in the community the library is in, right? I want to be able to play specific kind of music, right? I like this kind of music. I want to be able to be self-determining. I want to own my own magazines, my own newspapers, right? I want to open up industry. I want to do these things. That's self-determination. And I have a right to do that, and you don't have a right to stop me from being self-determining.
Right.
That's what self-determination means. So some of us give it up, right? We take one or the other, but you start changing yourself. You need both. You need democracy and self-determination. You need to be able to say, I can do this because I want to. This is what is important for my family and my community. Yeah, so we want to have an after-school program that teaches African history and culture and dance and language and all these things. We should be able to do that. That's self-determination. We should have the right to do that. Why? Because everybody else does.
That's right.
Because everybody else does. We're the only people who believe that we should get rid of that simply because we're in America. And that was Malcolm's problem. He used to say, if I was an American, I wouldn't be catching hell. That's what Malcolm would say. But what he was hinting at is that we don't have the right to determine our own destiny. Because our kids still today have a negative image of themselves because of the superstructure portrays them in a negative way, and they internalize that negativity, and they still despise their heritage, their features, their hair, their nose, their lips, their skin color. Right? They still despise their neighborhoods, where they live, their community that they live in, and they still look at themselves and us in a way that's inferior. That's inferior, right? And so our job is to eradicate that and begin to replace it with self-love, self-respect, right, and self-determination. Those are the two most, when you're talking about Malcolm, you have to talk about self-determination, self-respect, and self-defense.
That's right.
You have to know that. You have to be clear on what those things mean. You have to be clear on what those mean. Well, why do you want to, in Newark, we paint pictures all over the city, like we do a mural project. Somebody hit me on Instagram, you know how they troll you, right? And said, oh, the mayor just wants to put faces everywhere. Faces of the people, brown faces and all over the city. Yes. Yes, it is purposeful and deliberate. It is on purpose and deliberate and premeditated. Right? As a matter of fact, it's conspiratorial. But the idea is, right, that's self-determination. Democracy is saying, we pay our taxes. We can be involved in this. We should be able to paint. Now the self-determination is, we want to paint that. We want to paint that. Why? Because we're in charge. That's self-determination. We want to paint that. And we need to paint that because the images that our kids see are negative ones on 12 and 4 and 7 and 2. And they wake up in the morning to a dead body. And they go to bed at night to a dead body. They wake up in the morning to people going to jail. They go to bed at night to people going to jail. They go outside and their friends are going to jail. Their father's in jail. Their brother's in jail. Their uncle's in jail. This one is killed. That one is killed. This one is murdered. They need to see Marcus Garvey on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
They need to see Malcolm X on the wall. They need to see beautiful faces and images of themselves struggling but being successful. When they walk out of their house, they need to be embraced by images that look like them and represent them. Positive and beautiful images that say, I love you, I'm beautiful on purpose. They need to see those images as much and as often as they possibly can. And that's what self-determination means. That we don't wait for other people to do for us, as Elijah Muhammad taught Malcolm X, what we can do for ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Encourage each other.
We don't wait. So we don't have to, people say, we don't have to wait for other people to tell stories about us that are positive. We can tell our own stories. We don't have to wait for people to have events that put us in their events, that include us in their events. We have our own events. Right? We don't have to wait for other people to say that it's okay for you to be black in America. You can be black on purpose in America and love it. You don't have to wait for that. And you don't have to wait for other people to recognize you as a human being. You can defend yourself as a human being and exert your right as a human being and get power in this community. That's what you should be doing all of the time. And that's what self-determination is. And if you're talking about Malcolm, you need to know democracy and self-determination. You know, because when people say, "Oh, Malcolm was the violent one," though he never was involved in any acts of violence.
Not at all.
Never. And so when people are saying that to you, these are people who are purposely trying to distort your view of the leaders in your country, and more importantly, they are stunting your ability to be intellectually mature. To begin to get those ideas and understand them, right? And understand those ideas and then apply them to your present day life and your present day situation and begin to use those things so you're no longer the victim of anything, that things don't happen to you, they happen because of you. Right? That they don't happen, because you're there, that they happen for you. That's what you need to make sure every single day that you're here. If you're not organized, if you're not in an organization, if you're not part of anything, then you need to be. You need to be. You need to be. Kwame Ture said all the time, organize, organize, organize. You need to be in an organization. You have to be a part of something. You have to be involved in something. You have to be talking to people that are conscious and getting a hold of information that is making you more conscious so that you can struggle on all levels, so you can defend yourself on all levels. So you can do that on all levels. Why? Because we're still in communities that are defenseless. We are defenseless. We can't protect our families. We can't protect our children. We can't protect our schools. They take our schools. They take your jobs. They take your family. They lock your kids up. It's finished. We can't protect our communities. We can't protect your family. You can't get the garbage picked up on your block.
That's right.
Right? So when those things happen, then we're still defenseless. And then the real craziness of it is they litter the place with you, with your faces, so they can actively discriminate against you without being present.
Yeah.
Without being present. And get you to choose the back door even when the back door don't exist. When the back door don't exist, you still choosing it. Meaning you're looking for the back door, as Carter G. Woodson would say. And if the back door is not there, guess what we do? We make the back door.
Oh, yeah.
We create the back door just to go through it. Because we used to being and going through the back door, so we make one up and fight each other to rush to get through that back door. And we'll tear each other up just to get back there. The little bit of crumbs that are left at the table, we accept those and we fight each other ferociously over the few crumbs that's left at the table for us to get. We don't want the meal, we just want the leftovers. In fact, we entitled to the leftovers at least, right? And then we hurt each other about who's more qualified to get those leftovers. And that's generally our position in the state. And we wait for other people still to come to our community and organize us for us. And then they're in charge of organizations in your community.
Oh, yeah.
They helping you, but they come from somewhere else to help you organize in your community, and you don't even have sense enough to be in charge of it.
Right.
They have to direct you, right? To get the things that you deserve simply because you was born. Right? And we got to destroy all of that. And we begin that by beginning to understand who we are, unifying ourselves, studying, right? Organizing ourselves, and getting back to where we are. And I want to say, really wind it up, just dealing with Malcolm's battle of the bullet. You know, this present day situation is really, 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 really serious.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure if we understand how serious it really is. And we've allowed people who have privilege to come into our community and dictate to us who we should vote for and who we shouldn't vote for based on something that they believe.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you might agree with them with a little bit of here and there, but the reality is we have to win.
Oh, yeah.
That's the reality. We can't afford what we get ready to get. What we are getting. We can't afford a cut to housing. We can't afford a cut to health care. We can't afford it. We can't afford to roll back progressive criminal justice reform. We can't afford that. We can't afford to go backwards. We can't afford this crazy person. We can't. We can't afford it. And while we're debating with each other about who's going to represent us better,
That's right.
and we're going to fight with each other in our community about who represents us, who's going to do for us better, because it's always going to be somebody else doing for us, because we're not in the position to do for ourselves, right? So ultimately, we're going to fight each other about that. Our community is going to be in dire straits.
Oh, yeah.
And so now, they explain what happened to you in a way that also disempowers you. Because it focuses you away from what the real problem is and begins to focus you on things that don't matter to you at all.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So they got everybody, every Negro in America is talking about Russians.
That's right.
You'll never hear me talking about Russians. Never. Russians didn't put us in Jim Crow. I would never, and let me tell you why that is a fake. And even the people that are supposed to be so progressive, they on TV talking about Russians and saying that, you know, the problem with the Democratic Party is, A, they had a bad candidate. That's historically incorrect that we lost because of this. That's historically incorrect. It's incorrect. Do not let people tell you that. The Democrats actually won. They won the popular vote. When people start saying that, it takes you away from what the problem is. The problem is the Electoral College, and because they got you focused, they got you keep saying, oh, Hillary's a bad candidate, that's why she lost. They're debating, oh, she was a bad candidate. No, I don't care how terrible you thought she was, she got the popular vote, and most people voted for her. And the last time we was in this situation with black people was 1877 in Hayes Tilden, when they took the troops out of the South and we endured 100 years of lynching. The Electoral College did that then and is doing it now, today, in present day. So don't get people to start diverting you to start thinking about some other stuff. They did that. The Democrats won, so the problem is the Electoral College. Focus on that.
Right.
And they're not going to focus on it. Not Republican, not Democrat, not Progressive, not the Green Party. Nobody is saying that. And you know what else nobody is saying? Not the Social Democrats, not the Socialist Americans, not the Green Party, not the independent parties, not the Democrat or the Republicans. You know what they're not saying? They're not saying they stole the black vote in 2017.
Yeah.
They didn't say that the Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, Section 48 of the Voting Rights Act was ripped, was gutted away. That this was the first national election without the protection of the Voting Rights Act. That's what democracy is about. That's what I said, self-defense, protection of the Voting Rights Act. Without that. And so thousands, tens of thousands of African Americans and Latinos were disenfranchised on election day, did not get an opportunity to vote in a lot of those states that matter. In North Carolina, in Arizona, in the states that they're talking about. Long lines of people waiting outside to vote. Hundreds and hundreds of people, hours to vote. Whole names taken off of the voting rolls. Disenfranchised. And guess what? Putin didn't disenfranchise them. The Supreme Court did that. And other Americans. The Supreme Court and the Republicans disenfranchised, and a few cooperating Democrats. disenfranchised tens and hundreds of thousands of African Americans, right? So that's not the discussion. So when you watch the news on Sunday and all the talk shows, count how many times they talk about the Voting Rights Act and the disenfranchisement of African Americans versus the number of times that they talk about these Russians and these hackers. Yuri, some person, some crazy, you don't even know what the heck is going on. So complicated and convoluted, you sitting there trying to figure out, and Donald Trump is running around in circles, he met with this person, he met with that person, they knew he talked to him a long time ago. You don't think the intelligence community knew that this man was conversing with those people over there in the middle of this election? You don't think they knew that this stuff was going on? That they were undermining the Democratic Party? They knew this from the beginning. You don't think that they knew that all this stuff was happening? What they also knew is that the Voting Rights Act was gone and we had no self-defense. And because we couldn't defend ourselves, they stole our vote. They stole our vote. And because we're not organized, we can't even fight to get it replaced or get it put back. Right? And we're depending on people who are leading us, who are talking about Russians and not about our Voting Rights Act. And so you should be telling them, when they bring that up, I don't want to hear that. I want to talk about what's happening here, in this country, in my city, in my state. When I go vote, I want to know what's happening here. They hacked the Democratic Party? Okay, cool. But my grandmother couldn't vote in Arizona. And the Russians didn't do that. It was Americans that did that. It was some conservative and liberal apologists who allowed this thing to take place, both white and black, who allowed it to take place. And it's gone. And so we're going to be fighting in the next few elections from a handicap.
Yeah.
This is the first time since the law was instituted that we're missing that. You know what that means? What it really said? It said that they identified places by name, y'all.
That's right.
In the law, they identified places by name. They identified states and cities and counties and municipalities by name. They said these places are historically discriminatory. Historically have discriminated against black people in this country for decades. And because they are historically discriminatory, that in order for them to make any changes to voter laws, they have to get permission to do so. It was called pre-clearance. They had to get a pre-clearance from the court to allow them to change any voting rights laws. And do you know why they was arguing the case in the Supreme Court? That those states were already working to change their voting laws while that was being argued. And the minute that it was argued and it was thrown out that those states and those counties instituted voting laws, sometimes weeks after the Supreme Court case was even put out there, they didn't get the ink chance to dry before they discriminated against your relatives in this country. That is a greater discussion to have than to be talking about Russians. It is. And when I say it all the time, even if I have to be the lone voice, saying somebody's got to talk about the voting rights, right? And if I hear somebody talking about it, I turn it up a little bit, I focus in on the internet. If they say something about it, I want to hear what they're saying, because we need to make it catch on. And all the people that's supposed to be supporting us, all these liberals that are out here that love us, they need to be talking about that. They need to be restoring it, right? And that Voting Rights Act, come to find out, didn't just protect us. It protected a slew of people. It protected Latinos. It protected poor folks. It protected workers who had to go to work and voted early, or voted same day, or registered the same day, who put in absentee ballots, who did all these other kinds of things that they all eradicated. It protected people. And they got this whole thing, now he's taking it a step further, Donald Trump. You don't hear much about it. Now he's signed an executive order. He signed an executive order looking into election fraud. But that's how they begun this in the first place. You ever heard him get on TV and say millions of illegal people voted, dead people and all these things? That's what he said. He said that's his impetus to disenfranchise you some more. Because you know what they're saying? They're looking at people's names across, not just in the same city, but across the country. Yeah. Saying, so if your name is John Smith and your name is John Smith, they're saying you're the same person and you're voting in multiple states.
Wow.
Or if your name is Rodriguez, right? Because you know we got a lot of names that's the same. You know why we got a lot of names that's the same? Because we was enslaved. And because we were enslaved, we carry our slave master's name. So there's a lot of us named Johnson around here.
Yeah, Jackson.
There's a lot of us named Jackson, right? A lot of us named, we all those names, right? They all the same. You know, we was John's son and Jack's son and Richard's son and all of those people, right? Right? So we got all of those. We green and brown and little and, you know, and white. You black as the midnight. You Bob White. Right? And all of those names, we got those names. We got those names because of the history of our people in this country, right? And so they telling you, Mr. Johnson, that Bob L. Johnson is the same as Bob R. Johnson in Nevada and New Jersey. And they're going to purge it, and they're going to purge it. And the problem with that is you have to fight to get your name back.
Yeah.
So it's not just so you say, oh, they can't do that. That's crazy. Oh, yes, they can. And then you have to prove that you're not Bob R. Johnson, that you're actually Bob L. Johnson. Now, who the hell is going to do all of that on election day when they didn't even know their votes were purged? Their names were purged from a thing until election day when they walk in that booth and they tell you your name is not on that list. Then you go through all that to find out you can't even vote anymore because, you know, they're going to send a little card to your house that you probably threw in the garbage. Right? And they disenfranchise you really slick. That's what's happening. And so we're starting almost from scratch around here to struggle and fight with these people in order to prove or defend ourselves, defend our humanity, defend who we are in this country, and defend ourselves as citizens. I know some of us don't want to be citizens. You know, that's what Malcolm used to say, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm not even an American. Malcolm used to say that, right? But I hate to tell y'all this, Malcolm was wrong on that. Why? Because Malcolm himself is a product of America.
That's right.
His family, he was born in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, you know how you got to Omaha, Nebraska? Omaha, Nebraska was one of the places that when slaves migrated from the South in the first migration, they went. In 1920, Omaha had the second largest population of black people in America in the West Coast.
Yeah.
In Omaha. LA, then Omaha in 1920. So all of us that went west was in Omaha. Why? Because of the meat packing industry and the railroads in Omaha was employing black people. So even when they get on the news and they talk about the workers in the Midwest, that's us. I know people, when that's a cold word they're talking about when they say workers in the Midwest, you know I remember thinking they're talking about white people. There's black people out there. There's black people out there too. I mean, in Omaha is where we were. Right there. As a matter of fact, some of the early race riots happened in Omaha.
Oh, yeah.
In Omaha. Malcolm's father was in the Garvey movement. All the stuff he was talking about. They were organizers in that community. They had to get out of there. They got chased out of there by racism in Omaha. Right? And they only got to Omaha because they had to get the heck out of the South. And they only got to the South because we were brought here in chains. We are a product of America's history. And so whether you like it or not, you are an American. And when you leave the country, you know more that you're an American than anything else. Because America is doing so much around the world that when you get there, people identify you as an American. And before, you used to get a break because they say, oh, you're a black American, which means you got a little thing going on. But because black people in this country have traded in their humanity for citizenship, that now it don't even matter. We traded in our humanity, we took our international card and gave it away just to be citizens, right? So now when you go, you're just an American, right? You're just an American. You go to Africa, they're going to identify you as an American. You might look African until you start talking. Then they know you're not. And you can't hide. You're certainly not going to be French in France or English in England. You can't be Australian in Australia. When you pull out your passport, it's going to say American. It's going to say Estado Unido, United States, or whatever you wanted to say, it's going to say that, right? So at the end of the day, our job then, now here, is because we are here and because history has made us Americans, now we have to make them understand that we are also Americans. and that there would be no America if it wasn't for us. That they would not have anything if it wasn't for our free labor for 250 years. That in 1860, 60% of the United States gross domestic product was because of people were slaves. That you wouldn't have a shipping industry, a railroad industry, a textile mill industry. You wouldn't have cotton or any of those things if it wasn't for slavery in this country. We made this, now pay me. Pay me. And that's the posture you have to have. Don't get so, I say, don't get so revolutionary that you become passive. You know, some of us are so revolutionary, we can't go to, we don't want to go into the church, we don't want to do nothing, we don't want to do this is not revolutionary enough, that's not revolutionary enough. Meanwhile, everything is going on, but we can't be involved in that, so we home reading books. We home reading books, getting smart. Meanwhile, the world is happening, and your people are being oppressed. You got to get involved, right? You got to turn that into some type of level of action at this point. So don't get so hip, so radical that it means that you can't fight anymore. Now you got to get involved. You got to go where your people are. Go where they are and begin to organize them. That's what you must do, right? And you have to do that immediately. Advocate for yourself. Take over your neighborhood. Take over your community. Stop waiting for people to do something to you. And nobody owes you anything except the people who refuse to pay you. Yeah. The people who owe you not paying. Well, yeah, I've come to that realization. The people who owe me, they're not going to pay. They haven't paid. Everybody else got something. We didn't get no reparations. You didn't got 40 acres and a mule. You didn't even get a puppy and a plot of land. You didn't get nothing. So if you want reparations, then you fight for reparations. But don't ask for something from somebody else who don't owe you nothing. Fight for reparations. Fight for that, and then prepare yourself to seize the things in your community that you should have. Seize your school board. Seize your block association. Seize the city council. Seize the municipality. Seize it. Seize the power and apparatus of power and everything that's involved in it. Seize it, and then struggle as hard as you can to be self-determining with the power after you seize it. Don't seize position, seize power. Don't seize position, seize power. That's what you do. Not position, because we beating each other up over these positions. I mean, we get all on YouTube and degrade each other and demean each other and talk about each other's grandmother and over positions. No power. And we got 15 positions and no power. We ain't got a power to do nothing. Right? And that's a problem. Right? And you know why they don't got no power? Because they know we fighting over position. They're going to give you the position, you just can't have the power. They will get the position. And you can look at any institution, whether you're talking about, the city government, the police force, anything. People want the position, and they think the higher the position, the more power. But that's not true. It's not true. If you believe that Donald Trump has more power than some of these other folks that are around him, you're wrong. So we want the position, we just don't want the power. Because the position has all the niceties, the good things. We can walk around, we can pomp and circumstance, we can dress nice and look good, and people know our name and all this other kind of be seen. But power is important. That's what we need to be taking. We need to take power. You need to take power, and if you took power, your kids will respect you more. They tear up our community because we ain't got no power. They tear it down. We don't have any power, any authority to do anything. You know when you don't have no authority in your house, the kids run the household? Absolutely. You ever seen a household where the kid's in charge? You don't have no authority in your house. We don't have any power in our community. They tear the place apart. We have no power. We can't make them stop. We can't make them come. We can't make them sit. We can't make them organize. We can't get them jobs. We can't get them health care. We can't get them a decent education. We don't have any power. They're giving out thousands of jobs. Your kids can't get one. You'd rather be on Facebook talking about each other. You don't got no power. The power to do what? You got to elect the people you want. You elect the people we put before you.
Right.
That's it.
That's right.
is you don't have power individually, you have it collectively. And when you realize that your collective strength is greater than your individual strength, then you begin to get power. And so then now you're trying to bring people towards you, not run them away from you, right? And so you're so interested in your ego gets in the way of us seizing real power. Your ego is more important than power. And that's the problem. And your kids are upset about that. The school lunch is terrible. They can't get the playground fixed. The principal is out of control. They ain't teaching them nothing about themselves in that school. They still teaching 19th century history in this present day. They reading books that their face is still not in. They don't tell them nothing about their own history. They don't know who they are. They graduate from these schools and they don't even know these people. If their kids that graduate from high school, they never heard of Malcolm X, never heard of Marcus Garvey, don't know nothing about Madam C.J. Walker or Mary McLeod Bethune. They don't know the people of their community. They don't know James Baldwin. They haven't read Angela Davis's work. They don't know anything about the Black Panthers or the Young Lords. They don't know any of this information about how they got here, how they migrated here from the South. They think they was born and raised on Avon Avenue. They don't know that their family came from the South via the Congo or via West Africa. They don't know any of these things. They don't have a relationship to the Caribbean. They don't know any of these. They don't know about any of these movements that happened in their city. They don't, or in their country. They don't know about the rebellions that took place in their own house. The rebellions that took place in their own neighborhoods and why they started and who was in charge of it. They don't even know who the first black mayor was of their city or the first black mayors in the community. They don't even know the first black mayors, or they don't know nothing about the Gary Convention, right? They don't know to respect themselves, so they don't know nothing about themselves to respect themselves. They don't know that. All they know is that there's gangbanging and robbing and shooting and murder going on in their community, and they rapping and they singing about it all day. That's the images that they see. And they know a little bit about slavery, and then it was slavery, and then we wound up in Newark. They don't know nothing about any of that. They don't know the struggles we went through. They don't know W.E.B. Du Bois. They don't know Frederick Douglass. If you ask them who George Washington is, they know George Washington, but they don't know Fred Douglass. They don't know Fred Douglass in his speech, what does the 4th of July mean to a slave? They don't know that speech. They haven't read it. And when they go to college, they're going to read it still. They don't know it. They don't know themselves, so they come back to your city. If they even get a chance to leave this place, they come back to this place, and instead of being helping develop the city, they help destroy it. Matter of fact, they try their best to get the hell out of here.
That's right.
They try their best to get out of here, disappear, while the rest of the world trying to come to the golden door. Your kids trying to escape.
Yes.
Same thing. In Newark, we revitalized. We were trying to get the heck out of here. Our kids do not have the information that they need to protect the resources and the wealth that's in their community. If they thought it was theirs, then they would protect it. But they don't think it's theirs, so they're allowing other people to take it, and then we cry that the neighborhood is being gentrified when we didn't do anything to keep it when we were here.
That's right.
They convince you to leave, now you're running out, then they coming in and make it worth something. They didn't tell you not to buy the stores. The buildings ain't worth nothing now. They wasn't worth nothing. They got the heck out of here, left it burnt down and abandoned and zero, and we didn't fix it up. We didn't develop it. We didn't go into it. Now they want to come into it and develop it. Then we get on the speech and start crying and gentrifying our neighborhood. Well, they running you out because you want to leave. And you don't know it's your community or the things belong to you, so you don't build anything and you don't protect it, and you don't have any power to protect it, so they take it right from you.
That's right.
And this is deliberate. It happened on purpose. It happened on purpose. After World War II, they subsidized the suburbs. They subsidized the suburbs and built highways out of the city so the people could move to the suburbs and work in the city and take the wealth out of the city and move into the suburbs where they were. They did this on purpose. They gave them low interest loans. They gave them, and it started even with FDR during the Great Depression. It began and grew with all these WPA projects. They developed and gave jobs to unskilled workers. They raised the quality of life for most white Americans and moved them to the suburbs and left you in the cities, and then we revolted and we got angry. We burned the place down, and now there's hollowed out shells in our neighborhoods and our communities, and they left and took the tax base with them. And then they built projects in your neighborhood. They built projects. The country, what they did, they subsidized projects in your neighborhood and subsidized houses in the suburb and 280 and 78. The kids don't know that 280 wasn't always there. The kids don't know 78 wasn't always there. They don't know University Hospital was built on people's houses, that black people used to live there. They don't know that 78, they demolished all those houses, eminent domain, and threw all those people out and put 78 there and pushed all the people into those projects. They don't know that history. And so all the people lived on top of each other in poverty and projects. And they took the tax base out of the community and had the nerve to tell you that we're going to fund education through your property taxes, but you don't own no damn property, so you don't get the money that you need to educate your kids. So the school system deteriorates year after year after year, decade after decade. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Then they tell you you can't educate your own kids. You don't know what you're doing, that they can't compete on the national level. They can't compete with the other schools around the state, where they purposely took the bottom out of your schools by taking the tax base away. Didn't tell you, oh, we can fix it if you let us come back and privatize your schools. We just have to be in charge.
That's right. Charter school.
And if you see this, you become dangerous. If you see it clearly. If you know your history, and if the kids knew their history, then the problem is the battle of the bullet becomes real. Then maybe they put those guns down and identify who their real enemies are and start going after them. And leave their brothers alone. And leave their neighbors alone.
Yeah.
They start going after the people who created this situation for them, who got them living in a hellhole. Bible said poor people live in poor neighborhoods. If you live in a poor neighborhood, you get a poor education. If you get a poor education, you got a poor paying job. If you have a poor paying job, you live in a poor neighborhood. It's a vicious cycle. Let me say that again. Poor people live in poor neighborhoods. If you live in a poor neighborhood, you get a poor education. If you get a poor education, you get a poor paying job. If you got a poor paying job, you live in a poor neighborhood. It's a vicious cycle. And you got to break the vicious cycle. Long live Malcolm X. God bless you all.
Thank you. Ras Baraka, Mayor Ras Baraka. I want to thank you very much. Also with us today, I want to introduce you to our New Jersey State Assemblywoman, Angela McKnight is here. Angela. Also our County Registrar, Diane Coleman is here. Councilman for Ward F, Jermaine Robinson is here. And also earlier we had Mayor Stephen Fulop was here. We want to thank you very much for coming out tonight to celebrate Malcolm X's birthday and the history that he made and the thoughts and the action that he's implanted in us. We want to thank Ras Baraka for very inspirational speech, and a man who is doing something there in Newark. So it's not just talk, it's action as well. And I also want to say that we're glad to have Ras here because this was the home for his father, Mary Baraka. Mary had was a part of the community awareness series for many years, going back from the 70s through the 80s, 90s, and up to his passing. He was always welcomed here. He also brought in the Blue Arc group, poets. Matter of fact, your mother was performed here as well. Amina Baraka was also one of the performers here at the CAS. So with all that, there's a long history of that, of the Baraka family and the Community Awareness Series here at the Jersey City Public Library. And that, so once again, thank you very much.